C3, Connecting Coaches Cognition. It's time to get some coaching for the coach. Welcome back to another episode of C3. I'm Courtney Groskin, and I'm here with
Sandy Heiser.
Sandy, what's new in your world?
Oh, man. Reading some books, seeing some live music, working our way through the cold winter.
What are you reading?
You know what? I'm reading the Sarah J. Maas books, and they're on hold forever at the library. But I think I'm on book 7 now.
That's the worst, is waiting for that book to come in.
I know. What is it? Empire of Storms. Tower of Dawn. Oh. I can't remember which one I'm on, but and then I've got another one on hold, so fingers crossed.
I love it.
What are you reading?
I'm reading The Music of Bees. I just started it. It's about the Pacific Northwest and this woman who keeps bees as a hobby, and some interesting people she's met kind of along the way.
Yeah, I've heard about that book. I've heard good things.
Yeah, it's an in-between book. Like, I'm waiting for a bunch of books from the library as well. So it's one of those, like, in stock now, get it.
Totally. Well, and the library, not that everyone wants to know about the details of the library, but the library Libby just decreased the number of books you can have on hold.
I have so many tags.
Terrible.
Because I can't put them on hold, and then I have to remember which ones I want to request when a new one comes up.
You know, the suffering of library book readers.
Of avid readers. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Someone's book worth waiting for on the library list is Craig Randall's book. He is an educator, author, and former school leader, known for his work on building trust-centered school cultures. He's the author of Trust-Based Observations, where he reframes classroom observations as a collaborative, growth-oriented practice grounded in relationships rather than compliance. Drawing on his expertise as a teacher, principal, and instructional leader, Randall focuses on practical strategies that help leaders support teacher learning, strengthen professional trust, and improve instruction. His work is widely used by schools and districts seeking to align observation and feedback practices with a culture of trust and continuous improvement. Well, Craig, thank you for coming. We welcome you to C3.
Thank you, Courtney and Sandy. I'm grateful to have the opportunity to chat today.
Yeah, can you tell our listeners about your background in education?
Pretty eclectic. I started out as an elementary school counselor, did that for 7 years, worked in my 8th year as a counselor in a severe behavior classroom, in the classroom, physical restraint all 180 days. It was a different era in terms of, I think, the rules on that. But then I coached on the side, and I actually detoured into small college basketball coaching for 7 years. And I loved the coaching, but I didn't feel I was making a big enough of a difference on the players. And I talked to my spouse about it. And our very first date, we talked about international school teaching. And so we decided to go to an international school job fair, and we ended up at the American School of Warsaw. And I was teaching PE and health. And when I was there, the elementary principal said, "Craig, I think you'd be a good principal." And after initial resistance, I found a program, because this is free online, that would work with my living overseas. And I met my mentor. I didn't know he was going to be my mentor, but I remember the first day in supervision class, he said, "You have to be supporting teachers, helping them grow. You need to spend an hour a day in the classroom. You need to ask them what they were doing to help students learn, what they might do differently. You have to build them from their strengths. You have to be generous in sharing their strengths." And we practiced observations, which I never talked to anybody that ever practices it when they're doing their program, over and over and over. And then I got my first assistant principal job at an international school in Korea. I told my boss about this crazy idea I had for observations. He said, "Let's do it." We did it, and teachers loved it right off the bat. I think they loved that they were being listened to and not told, and they loved having their strengths shared. And then it evolved and evolved through my international school career. I was at an international school in Brazil, the first place where they wanted me to show other people how to do it. And about 3 months in, the elementary principal said, "Craig, you got to protect your work." I didn't even know what he was talking about. And then I thought, oh, that's nice. Then I thought, oh, maybe there's something more to this. And I presented at the conference, wrote an article, We ended up coming home, turned it into a book, and now I train school leaders all over the world on how to do trust-based observations.
That is incredible. And also, how neat that you had two early mentors that really pointed you in that direction and were like, yes, run with your idea.
It's so grateful. The one in Korea, I mean, how easy, I don't think I would have been able to do it in the States. I mean, you have to do it a certain way. I don't think it ever would have developed. I mean, now we find ways to blend it in with systems that we're required to do it with, but I don't think I ever would have been allowed the freedom. And then, yeah, the man that became my mentor, boy, I tell him every time I see him, like, none of this would exist without you. So
Powerful mentors, the great impact on education for sure.
No
for
kidding.
sure.
So, based on your work with schools, how do you define trust-based observations and what makes them fundamentally different from traditional observation models?
Ooh, I think what I'd say is, sorry, that was a big sigh to start off with, wasn't it? Look, the way we've been doing it is really well intended, Marzano, Danielson, et cetera. But the reality and the research backs it up with two big studies is it does not improve teaching and learning. If our goal is collective teacher efficacy, because we know that's the highest effect size, it doesn't even work when what we're doing is lowering efficacy. And so really what ends up happening, research or to put that rating on pedagogy, like think areas 2 and 3 on those domains, the research shows that relational trust is lost and teachers play it safe. We all know the proverbial dog and pony show. It's not even proverbial. It's the dog and pony show, right? So we're not having fake conversations about fake teaching to tick boxes instead of what I'm really doing. And so really what trust-based observations does is we don't rate pedagogy. We still evaluate and we find ways, like I said, to blend with schools that have districts that have requirements. And the goal is to build relational trust so that teachers know that we can go into their classroom, see them trying something new, even though it's unlikely, have that thing they're trying be a train wreck, yet as opposed to the traditional observations where they'd be freaking out if that was happening on the day they were being observed. They won't be worried at all because they know the next day when we come into the room, the first thing we're going to say is, I love it you were taking a risk and give them a high five or a fist bump. And really, once we've created those conditions of psychological safety, then they will take risks and persist in taking risks. And when everyone's doing that regularly, growth will follow automatically. And so we only have 9 areas of pedagogy, not 76. We, look, and everything is well intended. So I'm not trying to be critical. And we work diligently in the reflective conversation to build trust. You all are familiar with Brene Brown, I'm sure. She talks about the connection between vulnerability, trust, and risk-taking. She says when vulnerability is too high, people won't take risks. The way you lower vulnerability is by building trust. And she has this great metaphor of a jar, and each consistent positive little action that we do is putting a marble in the jar. And you have to build that jar up before people feel safe enough to be able to take risks. And so there's exceptions, of course, with new teachers or something egregious, but we don't even begin to offer suggestion. We see you once every 3 to 4 weeks, but we don't offer suggestion until as early as the 4th visit because that jar is not full yet. And so, and then everything transforms after that, though, once that safety's there. Teachers embrace growth opportunities. They actually want them because they know it's going to be okay.
The parallel between coaching with trust, you have to build that trust, and then this model with using trust as well. And we see that higher efficacy within coaching and then implementation happening as well.
It's really, yeah, you're instructional leader, you're coach. You really are. You're not, I mean, of course we still have managerial duties, but we're changing what we do. And then sometimes maybe even when we're in schools that have coaches, then maybe we work with the school coaches when it's time for that suggestion piece because the trust is there. So it's not like the principal and the coach are scheming. It's like, no, they're there for me to help me and let's do this together. And so it all changes because the trust is there.
Oh my gosh, I love it. All right, based on your experience, what intentional moves can evaluators make before, during, and after an observation to build and sustain that trust? Like I'm thinking about it's January, We're doing some mid-year conversations right now.
Yeah.
That's timely for administrators. And then we'll go back out for another round of observations coming up probably in February, March. So what is your advice on that?
First, trust takes time and it takes consistent interactions with people, which means frequency. We need to be seeing people regularly. So like we say once every 3 to 4 weeks, and that depends on the size of your school and the number of people you're doing, because sometimes that doesn't work in a logical way. But you have to see them regularly. Otherwise, where are you going to have the opportunity to really, because those 20-minute reflective conversations, man, those are relationship building. I think what we do is we eliminate the pre-observation conference, because all that does is it causes teacher stress, and then it's that inauthentic teaching. So let's do that. It sounds counterintuitive, but make them unannounced. As soon as teachers know that they're positive based and strengths based in nature, they don't mind that they're unannounced. They actually prefer it because that worry about it is off the table. They just know it's like, this sounds so strange to you, I think, but people will say, "Oh, is it my turn?" Like they look forward to being observed, like, which is so like crazy that people would think that. So when you take that out and make it unannounced, then people don't mind at all. And so I think when we've been doing observations the traditional Danielson and Marzano way, as long as we have, or whatever other model that rates pedagogy, inadvertently, the model in us, even though we're the most caring people in the world and want to help our teachers grow, because I think 98% of us really want that to happen. When I have to start putting a number on you, I start to see you through a deficit-based mindset. And so I start to look at what's wrong with you and what I need to fix, as opposed to what's right with you and what can I build on, or what can I add that'll do it. And that mindset shift, when I can take out the pedagogy and look at strengths and really, really identify strengths. One of the things about our observation form that I really, really like is it's super detailed. So it allows me to be really specific with what I'm sharing with you. So I might say under rapport and relationship, one of the strategies is teacher sharing of themselves. So I might see that and I say, and right, the teacher said, when I was your age, da 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 da. And then, or when you said this, da 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 da. And we think about praise versus specific praise. Like teachers will say all the time, yeah, the principal came in and said everything was fine. It's just like, fine, but where does that take me? But when I can tell you specifically what you're doing that I saw that was strong, man, that is marbles in the jar, marbles in the jar, marbles in the jar. And like I said, it's counterintuitive to wait to offer suggestion. But if I do trust-based observations and start offering suggestions right away, they're just going to go, oh, this is the same old same. This is like your version of the Oreos cookie sandwich thing or whatever. But if I really wait and really build trust, teachers will, when I first started this is how the fourth part visit came about. Teachers, the third and fourth visit, when I didn't even know what I was really doing, started saying, okay, but what can I get better at? And that's when trust happens. So like, those are some of the things that we can do before and during. And then, the after is really the reflective conversation. Please never, ever, ever email teachers your feedback. Please always have an in-person reflective conversation. And we started to, not by telling, we started by asking questions. And we always start by saying, what are we doing pedagogically speaking to help students learn? And if you had the chance to do it again, what, if anything, might you have done differently? So instantly, I'm saying, I value you. What do you think as a professional? What do you think as a professional matters to me? That changes everything so much when we start with that at the beginning, as opposed to going, okay, so on 4.12, you got a proficient or, whatever. They're defensive the other way. And this way they're open and they look forward to it. And now growth becomes possible because it's psychologically safe.
Yep. And then when you're talking about like every 3 weeks, or when they know it's like, okay, this person is going to see me more than 2 times a year, which is about what people are used to. And they're like, oh, this person's going to keep coming and they're interested. What a difference.
And it's also, when we even get ready to offer suggestion, if I see you once and then again, whatever after the first time, we've all forgotten about by the second time, so we wouldn't even talk about it anymore. But when I do it, and when people know you're going to see me regularly, because we all have moments that are less than perfect. I mean, teaching's hard under the best of circumstances. And we track it so we see you in the beginning and middle and end. They don't worry. And even when we ask those questions, we'll say, look, we want to hear about the 20 minutes, but if you feel like we missed the best part or we left right before the best part, like just saying a little statement like that makes them go, oh, thanks. And then they relax, and then trust is built. And with trust, people will try new things. Without trying new things, we can't improve.
And that's really beautiful to get to see the progression if you're going every few weeks of the students within that class, because as we know, students growing and changing constantly. So what you see one section may be totally different the next time you go in because they've learned several new skills.
Or you'll see that, oh, that's what you've been talking about with that child struggling with whatever too, where you might come in one time and go, well, I didn't see that, right? But then we also have more empathy for our teachers when we're in there enough to see the day-to-day challenges that come with teaching, especially post-COVID with behavior changes.
Definitely. When a teacher brings past negative observation experience into the relationship, what strategies have you seen work to help rebuild that trust through that observation process?
That is a great, great question. What I'll say is I think 98% of people that get into teaching get into it because their why is making a difference in the lives of young people. And for lots of reasons, people can go from, and they usually are growth mindset, to become more fixed mindset. And really, to your question, they're resistant. And it could be past experiences with observation. Look, occasionally there's a tyrannical principle out there that maybe the current one or maybe one before, so now their guard's up in terms of what they're going to do. And so we don't really do anything special or different with those teachers because just all the trust marble building actions that we do in sharing of strengths over time, and really maybe that's the biggest thing, is we wait. We don't offer, but it's not different for them than anyone else. But over time, we wait. And what we'll see is Carol Dweck actually endorsed the book, which, growth mindset, which is pretty exciting. But I didn't really realize this part. I think it was just me on my own. But now that I'm on the road and seeing it every week, what we'll see and hear from leaders is that the teachers that were growth mindset that have become fixed mindset, or the people that really you're talking about in this question, as we've gone and built this trust, usually by the fourth visit, and sometimes you can tell, I think they need one more visit before they're ready. But then when we're ready to offer a suggestion, and let me even talk about this because I think this matters. We ask permission to offer a suggestion. So I might say, Courtney, I have a suggestion on the cognitive load working memory section, especially on adding reflection processing activities. Would you like to hear? Versus, Courtney, I'd like you to work on da-da-da-da-da. No one likes to be told. And that's a little difference like that. And then like a coach, we work with you. All of a sudden, those people that would just give it lip service or just be resistant, they've changed. It converts them back into being growth mindset and really like they've rediscovered their joy almost. And look, I'm not going to say that to 100% of people, but 98, 99% of the people, that's what we see happen.
How do trust-based observations support teacher cognition, specifically reflection, self-assessment, and instructional decision-making over time?
It's a great question, too. So I think coming back to the reflective conversation, we start by asking those two questions. What were you doing to help students learn if you had the chance? So what have we already stated implicitly? Reflection is an expected part of practice. And sometimes the first time through when we're doing this, sometimes teachers will struggle. And oftentimes it's because they just do things without thinking about it in terms of pedagogical language. And so, but when we ask those questions, it gets them to start thinking what they were doing. And we always reframe their language into the pedagogical language of the form. And we think that helps them to start to think more purposefully, and that grows their cognition. So they might say something like, so then when the kids started working on the lab, I went around and made sure everybody knew what was going on. And I was helping the kids didn't get it. And then when I pulled that small group over, they were totally lost. So I had to reteach it. So they'll say that, but we'll say, oh, you were checking for understanding or formally assessing, providing descriptive progress feedback, and then differentiating instruction to meet the needs of the students. And then they'll go, oh, that sounds way better. It's the most common thing they'll say, which I think is so funny. But like, what have we just done? We've increased cognition just by doing that. And then because the form and its 9 areas of pedagogy are so detailed, and we always tell the teachers, like, the absence of something being filled in is not a negative. It just means we didn't happen to see it, or it might not have been appropriate for that lesson. But let's say under formative assessment or checks for understanding, we've got 3 ways that can happen. Teacher-led, peer-to-peer, or student-self. What do we see mostly? Teacher-led, of course. But when we go over the form, because it is so detailed and because it's been strengths-based and then defenses are down and people are more open on their own, they'll go, oh, I should add peer-to-peer self-assessment or formative assessment or self-assessment. Or we have an inverted Bloom's taxonomy. And maybe their questions will only get up to analyze. And they'll go, oh, I really should have asked an evaluate or synthesize question. Like it just gets their wheels spinning just by going over it and by going over it so regularly. But let me say this, only because we built in that strengths-based so they know it's psychologically safe for them to self-assess in front of you and even like say what they can get better at without even telling them.
Now you're reminding me, I'll go back to middle school about the lizard brain, and like when our feeling brain is feeling safe and cared for, then we can use our thinking brain.
I mean, none of this is rocket science. It's just human science, right? I mean, it's just
we're all middle schoolers, Craig.
Pretty much.
Well, and there's so many parallels to cognitive coaching and getting the cognitive shift during a coaching session.
Yeah, for sure. And it just by building from strengths and starting with questions like we do. I mean, I'm making it sound simple. It's not simple. It takes really purposeful, dedicated work because it's really easy. And semantics matter so much. It's really easy being really well intended to accidentally say something that's trust inhibiting. And man, it's hard. It's hard and takes not hard. It's time consuming to fill up that jar in a good way. But being purposeful and getting it right really does matter because one wrong thing said, we've knocked that jar over. And we can put some of the marbles back in, but we know some slipped under the couch and in the heater vent. And so I've got to rework. And so it's very purposeful at the same time what we do and say because the semantics matter really a lot.
So, Craig, if an evaluator that listens to this podcast wanted to begin shifting their observation practice to be more trust-centered tomorrow, what's one small, high-impact change that you would recommend they start with and why?
Well, that's a good and a hard question. I'm just going to speak my truth at first. I'm just going to say, email me and let's just have a call because I need to know what you're doing right now, right? Because what you're doing right now gives me guidance into like what best to give you a suggestion in terms of what the best path for you is. I would say focus more on strengths. But again, it's tough when you're in that rating scale to put it because it automatically, and if there's a way that you can eliminate or minimize it, so I only do the strengths once in a while, and I start to do it more regularly. I mean, I'm making something sound, it's hard. So I don't want to say something that's like, and then they're like, oh, I've got it. And then I don't want to accidentally set you up.
Totally.
So I feel like I'm not answering, but I have some
no, but I can see it because we're halfway through the year. It also might be a deal where it's like start with one person and try this one thing, or
yeah, it might be, or it might be. Okay, how do I blend this into? Like I know what Colorado's rules are on the Danielson really and a version of it, and so how do I do this while I'm still making sure I'm legally compliant, right? I mean, because we do have to be legally compliant. And so how do I do the thing that accidentally works against trust with what I really want to do is to build trust? Because I know that's what everyone wants to do, right? They want to build trust. They want to help their teachers grow. But maybe I would just say if I could choose one thing, start to look at what they're doing well and share those things really specifically in as many of them as you can. And I don't mean this. I don't mean and I'm not trying to be critical with this thing, I don't leave the little note in the back with one thing I saw you do. I mean, as many things as I can see in the time that I'm in there and share them all verbally with that person. That if I could give one thing, that would probably be it. But it took me a long time to get to that answer.
No, it's a great starting place. And especially if you're working on building trust and moving towards this model, is if you can build up those marbles now, even though you're in the middle of a process, is go and fill those buckets and get those marbles in the jar and all the positive things you're seeing.
For sure. And it's also, I mean, like for people that are interested in doing it, they're like, well, when should we start or whatever? And it's like, well, everyone says the beginning of the year, but sometimes the spring before is the best time, but it doesn't matter. It's just as soon as you make that, the teachers, if like it transforms culture, like in a week. Can I just share a quick story?
Yeah, please do.
So we do schools all over the world, and we do a lot of international schools. So I was leaving an international school in Cambodia. On the last day, the superintendent and I are leaving. And let me preface it a little bit. Before we come, people always say, what should we tell the teachers? And we just say, we're just telling you're adopting a new model, trust-based observations. We usually say the word trust. That's a lot. And then we just say, just tell them we think they're going to love it. But for those that get observed that week, when 6 or 8 people with a laptop come in, we know that's going to feel uncomfortable. But as soon as you have the conversation, we know you're going to feel different. So on Friday afternoon, the superintendent's walking me out to large school. So on the way out at 3 different times, we come across a teacher we had not observed that week because we only observed 12 or 14. And all 3 of them said almost verbatim the same thing, and they had the same sort of wistful tone. They all said something along the lines of, oh, I thought you were going to observe me.
Oh my God.
Like, that's in 1 week, that has become a culture of trust, right? So how did that happen? Because teachers are massive gossips. So as soon as the first person finishes, everyone's like, what was it like? What was it like? And all of a sudden, everybody hears about having their strengths shared with them, when many times people have never really felt that's been there because it's just been a grade. And that's what happens by Friday.
Incredible.
I can see Sandy's wheels turning.
I know teachers deserve that.
I know.
Well, and that's the reality. There's so many great things happening in classrooms.
Yes, with our strongest teachers and with our teachers that aren't very strong either. They're doing good things in there. And just like with a student, we have to take you where you're at, find the strengths of you as a teacher or you as a student where you're at, and grow you from there to what your next level is. It's not different. And we have to treat it the same, and we don't.
And the teacher saying to you, like, oh, I thought I was going to have a turn, just speaks to there's just a hunger for that kind of feedback.
Who doesn't? I mean, sometimes people say, well, gosh, don't they? Like, we're taking their planning time once a month. And I would just say, look, they love having their buckets filled with what they're doing well. They do not mind. They actually embrace that time once a month because that's not what the experience has been set up for them to do the whole rest of their career.
It's time well spent.
Exactly.
Yes, it is. It's creating safety.
Well, we're going to move into the rapid fire portion of the podcast in about 15 seconds or less. What's one strategy every evaluator should have in their back pocket?
Focusing on strengths.
If you had 60 seconds with a new teacher, what's one thing you'd tell them?
I'm so glad they're in our building, and I can't wait to work and grow with them and learn about them.
It's so true. And where can we learn more from you and with you?
Well, the website is trustbase.com. There's a book, Trust-Based Observations, that you can get on Amazon. And on social media, my handle is usually at TrustBaseCraig. And my email is craig@trustbase.com. And I am happy to talk to anybody who's struggling or curious or whatever. And also, I'm always so interested in learning what people are doing currently with their models. So Anybody that wants to chat, I will find the time and chat with you.
Well, we appreciate you joining us today, and it's very clear of the passion you have around trust-based observations.
Thank you so much, Craig. What a great conversation.
Thank you, Courtney and Sandy. I'm really grateful. It was a fun chat.
Today's conversation is a reminder that when observations are grounded in trust, they become a tool for learning rather than judgment. Craig, thank you for sharing insights that help us slow down, notice more, and coach with intention. Thanks for listening to another episode of C3. Be sure to follow us on social media. C3, connecting, coaches, cognition. Whose thinking will you mediate today?